I want to show you the evidence that it's no way that Jesus could have changed the disciples' life. This is the greatest proof, in my opinion, that Jesus had no impact on the life of the disciples. And it comes from John, the Gospel of John, chapter 21, starting at verse 1. After these things, Jesus showed himself again to the disciples. He showed himself again to the disciples. So he has to keep showing himself over and over and over again to reassure them that it's really him. To the disciples at the Sea of Tiberias. And on this wise, he showed himself. There were together Simon Peter and Thomas called Didymus, and Nathanael of Cana in Galilee, and the sons of Zebedee, and two other of his disciples. I wonder why they don't mention the two other disciples. Simon Peter says unto them, I go a fishing. Peter said, I'm going fishing again. Imagine having the God man with you. Imagine meeting Christ, being with him 3 years. And people believe that, and people say that Jesus changed your life, and yet you tell them that you're going back to doing the same thing that you was doing before you met him. You going back to do that. He told you he was going to make you fishers of men. So why are you going back to fishing for fish? Why are you going back to being a fisherman? That's like me, you saying Jesus changed my life. He changed your life, right? To be a disciple, to make disciples. That was their job. That was basically, that's what they did for a living, right? So he's going back to what he was doing. It's like me going back to delivering food, being a DoorDash or driving for Uber after I met Jesus. Three years I've been with this man, and I'm telling people that he changed my life. And I go back to doing the exact same thing I was doing before I met him. But let's keep reading. Simon Peter says unto them, I'm going fishing. They said unto him, we are also going with you. So all the disciples went back to what they was doing before they met Jesus. What does that say about the impact that he had on their life? After they seen him resurrect, after they was with him 3 years, living with him, seeing him do miracles, signs and wonders, it wasn't enough to keep them from going back as new creatures. All of that Jesus did them. He did. If this was the greatest miracle worker, the greatest man to ever live, to ever impact the life of the people, what does it say that the disciples went back to what they was doing before they met Jesus? They went back to their jobs. They went back to their regular jobs, just being regular men, regular people, doing regular stuff. After all that supernatural stuff that they did with Jesus as disciples, and even this is even a greater point. They didn't actually change the world. They wasn't world changers with Jesus. They didn't change the world until Acts. In the book of Acts, after Jesus ascended, that's when the Bible says that they turned the world upside down. After Jesus left them, they became world changers. Not when they was with him. So what impact did he really have while he was with them? So all the disciples went back to fishing. They went back to their job. They went back to being an Uber driver. They went back to being a DoorDasher. And put your job in there, whatever job your job description is. They went back to doing that. Just being regular people, doing regular things. They went forth and entered the ship, and immediately at that night they caught no fish. But when the morning was now come, Jesus stood on the shore, listen to this. But when the morning was now come, Jesus stood on the shore, but the disciples did not know that it was Jesus. Now, after they kept seeing him, he kept reappearing. They still didn't know who he was. They seen Jesus on the shore, but the disciples did not know that it was Jesus. Then Jesus said unto them, children. So they still haven't grown up yet, because Jesus is still referring to them as children. When will they become men? When did the disciples ever become grown-ups? Children. When did they become men and not children? Right? When did they ever grow up? He said, children, have ye any meat? Have ye any meat? They answered him, no. And he said unto them, cast the net on the right side of the ship, and you shall find. So they went on to find a lot more fish than they can count, right? But the point of the video is, how much impact did Jesus really have on these men if they went back to being regular men? They went back to their regular jobs, right? They went back to what they was doing before they met him, after he resurrected. They went back to doing life as usual, which is what I'm doing as a non-believer. Unbelievers go back to doing what we was doing before we so-called met Jesus. So the disciples are no different than us, the unbeliever who goes back to living their regular life because Jesus had no impact. He did not have the impact that people say or claim that he does. And this is proof of that.